The Galactic Council met in emergency session 3 days after the human withdrawal. The Great Hall was full for the first time in years. Every major species had sent representatives. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next. High Chancellor Veltar took charge of the meeting. His crystal throne reflected the lights of the hall, making him look like he was glowing. "The humans have made a serious mistake," he announced. "They think they can survive without the Council. We will show them how wrong they are." The first step was economic pressure. The Council passed new laws that banned all trade with human colonies. Any species that dealt with humans would lose their Council membership. Any ship carrying human goods would be seized. The second step was military pressure. Council fleets began patrolling near human space. They did not attack, but they made sure humans knew they were being watched. The message was clear. Step out of line and face the consequences. The third step was political pressure. The Council sent messages to every human colony, offering them a deal. Leave human space and rejoin the galactic community. Accept Council rule and be protected. Stay with humanity and be destroyed. Most human colonies ignored these messages. A few were tempted. Life on the frontier was hard, and Council protection sounded good. But when they asked for details, the offers got worse. The Council wanted complete control. They wanted to place governors on every human world. They wanted to control all trade, all military forces, all major decisions. The colonies said no. The Council was surprised. They had expected the human government to collapse within weeks. They had expected colonies to surrender rather than fight. They had expected humanity to beg for readmission to the Council. Instead, something else was happening. Human colonies were becoming more independent, not less. Without Council regulations, they could trade with anyone they wanted. Without Council oversight, they could develop their own industries. Without Council interference, they could make their own decisions, and they were making good decisions. The test came in the Ross system. This system had 3 planets and a huge asteroid belt full of valuable minerals. For 5 years, human miners had been working the belt under a Council license. The license said humans could mine there as long as they followed Council rules and paid Council taxes. When humanity left the Council, the hegemony claimed the license was no longer valid. They said the asteroid belt belonged to them now. They sent a battle fleet to take it. Captain Roy Martinez was in command of the Human Defense Force in the Ross system. He had 3 frigates and 2 destroyers. The hegemony sent 20 ships, including 2 battle cruisers and a carrier. On paper, it was not even close to a fair fight. Roy studied the enemy fleet from his command ship, the UES Ranger. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Karen Bell, was running battle simulations on her computer. Every simulation ended the same way. The human ships were destroyed within minutes. "Sir," Karen said, "recommend we withdraw. We cannot win this fight." Roy looked at the tactical display. The hegemony ships were moving in perfect formation, just like their training manual said they should. The battle cruisers were in front. The carrier was in the middle, protected by destroyers. The whole fleet moved as one unit, following ancient tactics that had worked for centuries. "Karen," Roy said, "how long did you study hegemony battle tactics?" "At the academy?" 2 years, sir. Standard curriculum." "And how many battles have the hegemony fought in the last 50 years? Karen thought about it. "Maybe 6 or 7, sir. All against pirates or minor species." Roy nodded. "And how many battles have we studied?" Karen understood what he meant. Humans had studied every battle in galactic history. They had analyzed every tactic, every strategy, every mistake. While other species relied on tradition, Humans had been learning. All of them, sir. Correct. And what did we learn? That the old ways do not always work, sir. Roy smiled. Let me show you something new. Instead of meeting the hegemony fleet, in open space, Roy split his ships into 3 groups. One group hid in the asteroid belt. Another group positioned itself near the system's sun, using solar radiation to mask its sensors. The third group, led by Roy himself, moved to attack the enemy fleet directly. The hegemony commander saw the lone human group approaching and laughed. 5 small ships against 20 large ones. It would be a massacre. But when the hegemony ships moved to attack, they found themselves in a trap. The human ships hiding in the asteroid belt attacked their rear. The human ships near the sun hit their flanks. Roy's group hit them from the front. The hegemony ships were caught in crossfire from 3 directions. Their perfect formation became a weakness instead of a strength. They could not turn to face all 3 groups at once. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, 3 hegemony ships had been destroyed. 5 more were heavily damaged, and the rest were retreating as fast as they could. The human force had lost no ships. 2 destroyers had been damaged, but they were still operational. Sir, news of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light speed. A small human force had defeated a major hegemony fleet. It should have been impossible. The hegemony high command demanded an explanation from their admiral. How had he lost to inferior forces? Admiral Krextor stood before the high command in his black uniform, his scaled face showing no emotion. The humans did not fight according to proper tactics, he reported. They used guerrilla warfare instead of honorable battle. They struck from ambush instead of meeting us directly. High Commander, a massive hegemony warrior with scars covering his body, slammed his fist on the table. You lost to humans because they were better prepared than you were, he said. Do not blame defeat on their tactics. Blame it on your failure to adapt. But the High Commander was wrong about one thing. The human victory was not just about tactics. It was about something deeper. For 3 years, while they sat in council meetings and listened to speeches about galactic cooperation, humans had been watching and learning. They had studied every species in the galaxy. They had analyzed their strengths and weaknesses. They had figured out how to fight them if necessary. The Zephyrians were overconfident and relied too much on technology. The hegemony was disciplined, but inflexible. The crystalline beings were intelligent but slow to make decisions. Every species had patterns, and humans had learned to recognize them all. Dr. Emma Rodriguez, now back on Earth, was working in a new laboratory. She was not studying alien diseases anymore. She was studying alien psychology. The Council had rejected human proposals for psychological warfare research, calling it uncivilized. Now humans were free to research whatever they wanted. Director, her assistant said, we have finished the analysis of hegemony command structures. Emma looked at the report. It showed exactly what she had expected. Hegemony commanders were trained to follow orders without question. They were good at implementing plans, but bad at adapting when those plans failed. Send this to Admiral Clark, Emma said, and start working on the Zephyrian analysis. If there is going to be another battle, our commanders need to know what they are facing. Admiral Clark received the report at her command center on Luna. She was already planning for the next confrontation. The raw system battle had been a warning shot. The real test was still coming. President Carter called an emergency meeting of the Global Defense Council. Representatives from every human world attended by hologram. The message was simple but important. The galaxy now knows we will fight, Carter said. They know we can win. But they also know we are still outnumbered 1,000 to 1. The Council will not give up. They will send bigger fleets and try different tactics. We need to be ready. The Defense Council voted to expand the human military. New ships would be built. New weapons would be developed. Most importantly, new alliances would be formed. Because humanity had learned something important during their 3 years in the Council, they were not the only species that felt mistreated. They were not the only ones who wanted something better than Council rule. It was time to find out who their real friends were. The news hit the galaxy like a bomb going off. Every major news channel carried the same story. Humanity had left the Galactic Council. No species had ever done this before. Not in the 1,000-year history of the Council. On the Altarian home world, High Chancellor Veltar met with his advisors in his Crystal Palace. They were all worried, but Veltar was not. He had been dealing with lesser species for 200 years. He knew how this would end. They will be back in 6 months, Veltar told his advisors. Maybe less. Humans are young and stupid. They do not understand how the galaxy works. Without Council protection, pirates will destroy their shipping. Without Council trade agreements, their colonies will starve. They will come crawling back, and when they do, we will make them pay for this insult. His advisors nodded and agreed. It made sense. Humans were just one small species. They had been lucky to get into the Council at all. Now, they would learn why they needed the Council more than the Council needed them. But something strange was happening in human space. Instead of panic, there was calm. Instead of fear, there was determination. The humans had been planning this for a long time. Commander Jake Sullivan stood on the observation deck of Station Nexus. This was the biggest Council station in the galaxy. It had been built by dozens of species working together. Now, he was watching human workers pack up 3 years of equipment and research. "Sir," his aide said, "the crystalline researchers are asking if we can leave behind the data from the joint physics project. They say it belongs to both species." Jake looked at the crystalline being waiting by the door. Its body was made of living crystal, and light moved through it in patterns that showed its emotions. Right now, the patterns showed worry and confusion. "Tell them the data belongs to whoever contributed to it equally," Jake said. "If they want to continue the research, they are welcome to do it on their own." The crystalline's light patterns changed to show anger. It started making high-pitched sounds that hurt human ears. Jake ignored it and kept watching his people work. Dr. Emma Rodriguez was in the genetics lab on level 50. She had spent 5 years working with alien scientists to study diseases that affected multiple species. They had made real progress. They had found cures for 3 different plagues that killed millions every year. Now she was deleting all the human research data from the lab computers. "You cannot do this," the hegemony scientist said. He was 8 feet tall and covered in gray scales. "This research could save lives." Emma looked up from her computer. "You are right. It could save lives. But for 3 years I have shared everything my team discovered. When I asked to see your team's research, you said it was classified. When I asked for samples from hegemony colonies, you said it was against regulations. You wanted me to give you everything and get nothing in return." She finished deleting the files and started packing her equipment. "If you want to continue this research, you can do it yourself. Good luck." The hegemony scientist watched her leave. He was starting to understand that humans were not going to change their minds. All across the galaxy, the same scene played out hundreds of times. Human diplomats packed their offices and left council embassies. human researchers took their work and went home. Human trade representatives canceled contracts and closed deals. The economic effects started immediately. The Council had not realized how much they depended on human work. Human colonies had been producing rare metals that were needed for starship construction. Human researchers had been developing new medical treatments. Human explorers had been mapping new hyperspace routes that made travel faster and safer. All of that stopped. Admiral Betty Clark stood in the command center of the lunar military base. Around her, screens showed the position of every human military ship in the galaxy. They were all coming home. "Status report," she said to her aide. 60% of our ships have returned to human space, the aide reported. The rest are still in transit. No hostile contact so far, but Council patrols are watching our movements closely. Betty nodded. She had expected that. The Council was probably trying to figure out if this was a trick or a trap. They would learn soon enough that humans were serious. "What about our bases?" she asked. "All personnel evacuated. Equipment destroyed according to protocol. We left nothing useful behind." Betty smiled. The destruction protocol had been put in place years ago, back when humans first joined the Council. If they ever had to leave quickly, they would make sure no one could use their technology against them. The Council was discovering this the hard way. Every human base they entered was empty and useless. The computers had been wiped clean. The weapons had been dismantled. The power systems had been shut down safely but completely. Captain Roy Martinez was one of the last humans to leave Council space. His ship, the UES Ranger, had been stationed at the edge of known space, protecting a trade route that connected 50 different worlds. Now he was flying through that same route, but he was not protecting it anymore. His ship's sensors showed 3 different pirate fleets moving toward the trade route. Without human patrols, the pirates knew the route was open for attack. Roy felt bad for the civilian ships that would get hit. But humans had tried to get more Council ships assigned to protect this route for 2 years. The Council had said it was not important enough. Now they would learn how important it really was. President Carter addressed the nation from the Oval Office. His speech was broadcast to every human colony and ship in the galaxy. "My fellow humans," he began, "today we begin a new chapter in human history. For 3 years, we tried to work within the galactic system. We followed their rules. We accepted their limitations. We hoped that patience and cooperation would earn us respect and fair treatment." He paused and looked directly at the camera. "We were wrong. The Galactic Council does not want partners. They want servants. They do not want cooperation. They want submission. Well, humanity has never been good at being servants, and we are not going to start now." The speech continued for 20 minutes. Carter explained the decision to leave the Council. He talked about the attacks on human ships and colonies. He described the unfair trade deals and the impossible regulations. He made it clear that this was not a temporary withdrawal. Humanity was done with the Council permanently, but Carter also had a message of hope. "We are not giving up on the galaxy," he said. "We are not hiding behind Earth's borders. We are simply choosing a different path. We will explore on our own terms. We will trade with those who deal fairly with us. We will defend ourselves and our friends." The speech ended with a promise. "To our fellow humans scattered across the stars, Earth stands ready to help you. To the species of the galaxy who have been ignored or mistreated by the Council, humanity offers friendship and partnership. To those who would threaten human lives or human worlds, know that we are no longer bound by Council restrictions on our military forces. The message was clear. Humanity was not running away. They were starting over, and they were doing it their way. Within days, the effects of human withdrawal spread across the galaxy. Trade routes became unsafe without human patrols. Research. Projects stopped without human scientists. Mining operations slowed down without human expertise. Some species began to wonder if the humans had made the right choice. Others, especially the powerful council members, were angry and planning revenge. But in human space, there was quiet confidence. The withdrawal was complete. All human personnel had returned safely. All human assets had been secured or destroyed. The real test was about to begin. We want to build something better than what the Council offers. He paused. 2 years had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. The galaxy looked very different now. What had started as one species leaving a political organization had become something much bigger. It had become a revolution. Admiral Betty Clark stood on the bridge of the UES Constitution, flagship of the Confederation Defense Force. Around her ship, the largest fleet in galactic history was preparing for battle. But this was not a human fleet anymore. Ships from 47 different species flew together in perfect formation. Valen survey ships worked alongside human destroyers. Kethri bioships pulsed with living energy next to mechanical vessels from the borderlands. Former Council species flew their ships next to rebels and refugees who had been fighting the Council for decades. Betty watched the tactical display showing the approaching Council fleet. It was massive, over 300 ships representing the combined military might of the old galactic order. The Council had finally decided to crush the rebellion by force. Admiral, her communications officer reported, incoming message from the Council fleet. Admiral Krextor wants to speak with you. Betty smiled. Krextor was the hegemony admiral who had lost the battle at Ross System 2 years ago. Apparently, he had been given a chance to redeem himself. Put him on screen. The view screen showed Krextor in his black uniform, his scaled face twisted into what might have been a smile. Behind him, Betty could see the bridge of a massive hegemony battleship. Admiral Clark, Krextor said, you are surrounded and outnumbered. The Council offers one final chance for surrender. Return to Council space and accept punishment for your rebellion. Your human worlds will be occupied, but your people will be allowed to live. Betty looked at the tactical display again. The Council fleet did outnumber the Confederation forces, but not by as much as Krextor thought. More importantly, the Council was still fighting the last war. Admiral Krextor, Betty replied. Thank you for the offer, but we decline. However, I have a counteroffer for you. Surrender now, and we will allow your ships to return to Council space safely. Continue this attack, and you will learn why the old ways of warfare do not work anymore. Krextor's laugh sounded like grinding metal. You have learned a few new tricks, human, but you are still outnumbered 3-1. Mathematics does not lie. You are right, Betty said. Mathematics does not lie. But you are using the wrong mathematics. She cut the communication and turned to her tactical officer. Commander Torres, execute Battle Plan Gamma. The Confederation fleet suddenly split apart like a flower opening. Instead of one massive formation, it became dozens of smaller groups that moved in different directions. Some headed for the outer edge of the system, others dove toward the local star. A few seemed to retreat entirely. Krextor watched in confusion. This was not how space battles were supposed to work. Fleets were supposed to meet in the middle and fight until one side won or retreated. Splitting up just made it easier for the stronger force to defeat the smaller groups one at a time. He ordered his fleet to pursue the largest group of Confederation ships. But as his ships moved to attack, they discovered that the smaller groups had not run away. They had moved to surround the Council fleet. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic military history. The Council ships fought bravely and followed their training perfectly, but their training was based on centuries of fighting enemies who used the same tactics they did. The Confederation forces used completely different tactics. Valen ships used their mineral scanners to find weaknesses in enemy armor. Kethri bioships adapted their weapons in real time to counter enemy defenses. Borderlands vessels used guerrilla tactics learned from decades of fighting pirates. Most importantly, human commanders coordinated everything using communication systems that were faster and more secure than anything the Council had. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it ended, the Council fleet was in full retreat. They had lost 40 ships and accomplished nothing. The Confederation had lost 12 ships but proven something important. The old galactic order could be defeated. The news spread across the galaxy within days. The mighty Galactic Council had been beaten by a collection of rebels and refugees. Species that had been afraid to oppose the Council for centuries suddenly began to reconsider their options. On the Altarian homeworld, High Chancellor Veltar met with what remained of the Council leadership. The Crystal Palace that had seemed so impressive 2 years ago now felt cold and empty. Half the Council chambers were vacant. The species that remained were worried and angry. "We underestimated them," admitted Counselor Ithara, the crystalline representative. "We thought they would fail without Council support. Instead, they have built something stronger than what they left behind." Veltar's crystal body dimmed with frustration. "It is not possible. The Council has maintained order in this galaxy for 1,000 years. How can a few rebellious species destroy everything we have built?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Intelligence Director Wexall, a being so heavily modified with cybernetics that his original species was impossible to determine, had been studying the Confederation for months. "They did not destroy what we built," Wexall said, his mechanical voice showing no emotion. "They built something better. While we focused on control and domination, they focused on cooperation and mutual benefit. While we demanded obedience, they offered partnership. While we threatened punishment, they provided opportunity." Veltar turned his crystal head toward the Intelligence Director. "You sound like you admire them." "I do," Wexall said simply. "From a purely analytical perspective, their system is more efficient than ours. They have achieved in 2 years what we have failed to achieve in centuries: true galactic unity based on voluntary cooperation rather than enforced submission." The truth was hard to accept, but the facts were clear. The Galactic Council still controlled the core systems, but their influence was shrinking every day. More species were leaving to join the Confederation. Others were demanding changes to Council policies. Even the species that remained loyal were questioning whether the old system still worked. Meanwhile, the Confederation was growing stronger. Commissioner Elena Foster, formerly a human diplomat at the Council, now served as the first Secretary General of the Confederation from the capital on New Geneva Station. New Geneva was everything the old Council capital was not. Instead of a massive structure designed to intimidate visitors, it was a comfortable space where beings from dozens of species worked together. Instead of rigid hierarchies and formal protocols, it operated on simple principles of mutual respect and democratic decision-making. Elena stood in the main conference room, addressing representatives from 63 different species. Some were recent additions to the Confederation. Others had been founding members. All of them had equal voices in how their alliance was run. "Friends," Elena said, "we have achieved something remarkable. We have created the largest voluntary alliance in galactic history. We have proven that cooperation works better than coercion. We have shown that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker." She paused and looked around the room at faces from dozens of worlds. "But our work is not finished. The old council still exists, and they still threaten anyone who chooses a different path. There are species in their territory that want to join us but are afraid of the consequences. There are worlds suffering under council rule that need our help." The debate that followed was intense but respectful. Some representatives wanted to focus on building up Confederation territory and leave the council alone. Others wanted to actively work to free species from council control. A few even suggested trying to negotiate with the council to find a peaceful solution. In the end, they reached a compromise that reflected the Confederation's values. Any species that wanted to leave the council and join the Confederation would be welcomed and protected. Any species that wanted to stay with the council would be left alone, as long as they did not threaten Confederation members. The door would always be open for negotiation, but the Confederation would not sacrifice its principles for a false peace. Jack Morrison, now serving as the Confederation's chief diplomat, was given the task of communicating this policy to the remaining council worlds. His message was broadcast on every communication channel in the galaxy. "To the species of the Galactic Council," he said, "the Confederation offers you the same choice we have offered to everyone: partnership as equals or respectful distance as neighbors. We do not seek to destroy what you have built. We seek to provide an alternative for those who want something different." He looked directly at the camera, knowing that council leaders would be watching. 2 years ago, humanity left the council because we were tired of being treated as second-class citizens. We have built something better, and we invite you to build it with us. But if you choose to maintain the old system, that is your right. Just remember that your people also have rights, including the right to choose their own destiny. The message marked the end of one era and the beginning of another. The galaxy now had 2 major power structures: the old Galactic Council, based on hierarchy and control, and the new Confederation, based on equality and cooperation. The Council. While the Council focused on punishing humanity, they missed something important. Jack Morrison had not spent 3 years in council meetings just complaining about human problems. He had been listening to other species complain about their problems, too. The Valens had been trying to get compensation for their destroyed homeworld for 50 years. Council corporations had strip-mined their planet for rare crystals, then left when the crystals ran out. The planet was now a dead rock, and billions of Valens lived in refugee camps on other worlds. The Kethri had asked to join the Council 12 times. Every time they were told their culture was too primitive. The real reason was that Kethri worlds had resources the Council wanted to control. But Kethri law said those resources belonged to everyone, not corporations. The Borderlands colonies were made up of dozens of small species that had been pushed to the edge of known space. They survived by trading with each other and helping each other fight off pirates. The Council ignored them because they were too small and too poor to matter. Jack had talked to representatives from all these species. He had listened to their stories. He had learned about their problems. And he had quietly told them that if they ever wanted a different option, humanity would be interested in talking. Now it was time to make those talks happen. Captain Nathan Wells commanded the UES Pioneer, the first human exploration ship to be built specifically for diplomacy rather than war. It was not as heavily armed as a warship, but it carried the best communication equipment humanity could build. It also carried something more valuable than weapons: trade goods and technical expertise that other species needed. The Pioneer's first stop was Valen Space. The refugee camps orbiting the dead homeworld were a sad sight. Millions of beings living in temporary shelters that had become permanent homes. The camps had been there so long that children had been born, grown up, and had children of their own without ever setting foot on a real planet. Nathan met with Elder Syntha, the leader of the largest refugee camp. She was old even by Valen standards, and her feathers had turned white from decades of stress and worry. "Captain Wells," she said through a translator device, "why have humans come here? The Council has made it clear that dealing with humanity is forbidden." Nathan sat across from her in the simple meeting room aboard the refugee ship. Between them was a holographic display showing the resources humanity could offer: food, medical, supplies, and most importantly, new worlds where Valens could settle. "Elder Syntha," Nathan said, "the Council forbids many things. They forbid your people from seeking compensation for your destroyed world. They forbid you from settling on worlds you could make productive. They forbid you from controlling your own destiny. Perhaps it is time to ignore what the Council forbids." The old Valen studied the display. "What do humans want in return?" "Partnership," Nathan said. "Not ownership, not control. Partnership. Valens are the best mineral surveyors in the galaxy. Your people can find rare elements that others miss. We have worlds that need surveying. We have ships that need navigators who understand mineral distribution. Work with us, and we both benefit." Elder Syntha was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "The Council will punish us if we make this deal." "The Council has already punished you," Nathan pointed out. "They have left you in these camps for 50 years. They have given you nothing but empty promises. What more can they do to you that they have not already done?" The elder had no answer to that question. 3 days later, the first Valen ships left the refugee camps, heading for human space. They carried survey teams and mineral experts. In return, human ships carried food and medical supplies to the remaining camps. The Council noticed, but they were too busy dealing with other problems to respond immediately. Because the Pioneer was not the only human ship making new friends. Dr. Helen Burke commanded the scientific vessel UES Darwin on a mission to Kethri space. The Kethri were unique among galactic species. They had developed advanced biotechnology instead of mechanical technology. Their cities were grown rather than built. Their ships were living creatures that could heal damage and evolve to meet new challenges. The Council had always been suspicious of biotechnology. They preferred machines they could understand and control. The Kethri way of life was too alien, too unpredictable. But humans found it fascinating. Helen met with Nest Singer, Velandra, a Kethri leader whose title meant she could communicate with the living ships that protected Kethri space. The meeting took place inside a ship that was more like a giant tree, with walls that pulsed gently and floors that felt warm and alive. "Your people are curious?" Velandra said. Her voice sounded like music, and bioluminescent patterns flowed across her skin as she spoke. "Most species fear our living technology. They think it is dangerous or uncontrolled." Helen ran her hand along the wall of the ship. It felt like touching a sleeping animal. "We think it is brilliant," she said. Our technology breaks down and needs to be repaired. Yours heals itself and grows stronger. Our computers process information. Yours seem to understand it. Velandra's light patterns shifted to show pleasure and surprise. You truly comprehend what we have built. We want to learn more, Helen said. We have things to teach as well. Our medical technology could help your living ships stay healthier. Our manufacturing techniques could help you grow larger structures. Most importantly, our military technology could help protect your worlds from those who do not understand what you have accomplished. The Kethri had been hiding from the galaxy for centuries, afraid that other species would try to exploit or destroy their biotechnology. But humans offered something different. They offered to learn from Kethri biotechnology and share their own knowledge in return. Within weeks, the first joint human-Kethri research stations were being grown in deep space. Human scientists worked alongside Kethri nest singers to develop new technologies that combined mechanical and biological systems. But the most important breakthrough came in the borderlands. Captain Lisa Parker took a small fleet of ships to the edge of known space. The borderlands were a collection of small systems inhabited by species that had been pushed out of council space. Some had been conquered and displaced. Others had been judged unworthy of council membership. All of them survived by working together and helping each other. Lisa met with the Borderlands Council on Freedom Station, a massive structure built from the wreckage of 1,000 different ships. Representatives from 30 different species gathered in the main conference room. They were a strange group. Some were refugees from conquered worlds. Some were explorers who had chosen to live on the frontier. Some were traders who made their living, moving goods between isolated systems. All of them were independent, tough, and suspicious of outsiders. The leader was a human woman named Captain Sarah Kane. She had left Earth 20 years ago after a disagreement with the colonial government. Now she commanded a fleet of ships that protected borderland space from pirates and worse threats. "Lisa Parker," Sarah said, "I heard you humans finally got tired of council politics. About time." Lisa smiled. "We learned from the best, Sarah. The borderlands have been showing the galaxy how to survive without council help for decades. We want to learn more." Sarah leaned back in her chair. Around the table, representatives from dozens of species watched and listened. "What are you offering?" "Military support," Lisa said. "The council is angry about our withdrawal. They might try to take it out on our friends. We will not let that happen." "Industrial capacity," added Commander Jake Sullivan, who had come with Lisa's fleet. "You have built amazing things with scraps and salvage. Imagine what you could build with proper materials and manufacturing equipment." "Most importantly," Lisa continued, "we are offering respect. The council treats you like outcasts and criminals. We treat you like equals and partners." The Borderlands Council voted that same day. 30 species agreed to form an alliance with humanity. It was not a formal treaty with pages of legal language. It was a simple agreement: help each other when help is needed, trade fairly with everyone, and defend friends against enemies. The network was growing faster than anyone had expected. Within 2 months of the human withdrawal from the Council, 43 different species had signed agreements with humanity. Some were formal alliances, others were simple trade deals. All of them represented something new in galactic politics. For the first time in centuries, there was an alternative to Council membership. The economic effects were immediate and dramatic. Species that had been struggling under Council restrictions suddenly had access to new markets and new technologies. The Valens used their mineral expertise to help human colonies develop mining operations that were twice as efficient as Council standards required. The Kethri shared biotechnology that revolutionized human agriculture and medicine. The borderland species contributed survival skills and innovative engineering that helped everyone involved. President Carter addressed the growing alliance from the new diplomatic station orbiting Luna. Representatives from 50 worlds watched as he spoke about humanity's vision for the galaxy. "We do not want to rule you," Carter said. "We do not want to control your resources or change your cultures. We want to work with you as equals." Jake Sullivan sat in the cold metal chair and watched the alien beings argue about humanity's fate. The chair hurt his back, but he had learned not to move too much during these meetings. The other species did not like it when humans showed any sign of being uncomfortable. The meeting room stretched out like a giant cave made of white stone. 12 different alien races sat at curved tables that formed a circle around the humans. Each alien group had fancy chairs that fit their bodies perfectly. The humans got basic metal chairs that were too small and too hard. Jake had been Earth's main speaker to the Galactic Council for 8 years now. Before him, other humans had sat in these same uncomfortable chairs for 29 more years. 37 years total of asking politely for fair treatment. 37 years of being told no. The Zenthari delegate stood up to speak. His name was Kethvar, and his body looked like it was made of living glass. Light moved through his skin in patterns that showed his mood. Right now, the light was red and angry. Jake knew what was coming before the alien even opened his mouth. "The poor council has reached a decision about the human problem," Kethvar said. His voice sounded like breaking glass. "Humans have been in space for less than 4 decades. They lack the wisdom to govern themselves properly in the galaxy." Jake felt his hands tighten into fists under the table. Captain Lisa Monroe sat behind, him in the observer section. He could feel her anger even without looking back. Next to her, Lieutenant Colonel Pete Davis was probably fighting the urge to do something that would get them all arrested. "Human colony ships must return to Earth immediately," Kethvar continued. "All mining operations in the asteroid fields must stop. Human military ships are banned from leaving the Sol system." He paused and looked directly at Jake. "This is for the good of galactic peace." The other alien delegates nodded their heads or made whatever gesture their species used to show agreement. The Vorthon representative flapped his wing arms. The Aquarian bubbled in her water tank. The tall, gray Etherians simply stared with their large black eyes. Jake had heard these same arguments for years. Humans were too violent. Humans expanded too fast. Humans asked too many questions. Humans did not respect the old ways of doing things. The truth was simpler. The aliens were afraid. When humans first met the Galactic Council, Earth was still recovering from the Third World War. The aliens saw the damage humans had done to their own planet and decided humans were dangerous. They offered membership in the Council, but only if humans agreed to strict rules. At first, it seemed like a good deal. Humans got access to alien technology and trade routes. They learned about other worlds and other ways of living. But the rules got tighter every year. The Council found new reasons to limit what humans could do and where they could go. "The vote is now open," announced President Zarathul. She was an Altarian, 8 feet tall with scales that changed color. Today her scales were the blue-green. That meant she was being official and serious. Jake already knew how the vote would go. It always went the same way. The 12 founding species would vote yes. Humanity would vote no. The Council would do whatever they wanted anyway. One by one, the alien delegates cast their votes. Yes, yes, yes. 12 times yes to putting humans back in their cage. The human delegation may now vote, Zarathul said. Jake stood up slowly. His knees hurt from sitting in the bad chair for 3 hours. The United Earth government votes no, he said. The motion passes 12-1, Zarathul announced. Humans have 30 days to comply with all restrictions. Jake looked around. The room at the alien faces. Some looked satisfied. Others looked bored, like this was just routine business. A few looked almost sorry, but not sorry enough to have voted differently. He thought about the message he had received from Earth that morning. President Turner had been very clear about what Jake should do if the Council passed these new restrictions. The president had been tired of watching humans get pushed around by aliens who thought they knew better. Jake reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his diplomatic credentials. The small metal card held all his authority to speak for Earth. Without it, he was just another human in a room full of aliens who did not want him there. He placed the card on the table in front of him. The sound it made was very small, but somehow, everyone in the huge room heard it. "What are you doing?" Zarathul asked. "The United Earth government formally withdraws from the Galactic Council," Jake said. His voice carried clearly through the chamber. "We are done playing your games." The room went completely quiet. Jake could hear the air recycling systems humming. He could hear his own heartbeat. "You cannot simply leave," Kethvar said. The lights in his glass body were flashing red and yellow now. "The Council decides when members may withdraw." "No," Jake said. "You decide a lot of things. You decide where we can go and what we can do. You decide if we deserve to be treated fairly. But you do not decide if we stay or go. That choice belongs to us." Security guards started moving toward the human section. They were enforcer units, robots built by the Council to keep order. Each one was 7 feet tall and armed with weapons that could stun or kill. Jake did not move. Lisa and Pete stood up behind him, but they kept their hands away from their weapons. This was not the time for fighting. "You are making a terrible mistake," Zarathul said. Her scales had turned dark red. "Humans need the Council. Without our guidance, you will destroy yourselves and threaten other species." "Maybe," Jake said. "Or maybe we will surprise you." The enforcers reached the human section. Their leader, a robot with a council symbol on its chest, spoke in a flat mechanical voice. "You must come with us." Jake nodded. He had expected this. He looked back at Lisa and Pete, then at the handful of other humans who worked at the council station. "Remember what I said in my last report to Earth. We tried to do this the easy way." As the enforcers escorted the humans out of the chamber, Jake spoke one last time to the assembled aliens. "You spent 4 decades trying to cage us, limit us, and make us small. You forgot one important thing about humans. We do not stay caged." The great doors of the council chamber closed behind them with a sound like thunder. Jake Sullivan had just ended 37 years of human diplomacy with 12 words. Now the galaxy would learn what humans could do when they stopped asking for permission. Behind the closed doors, the aliens sat in their comfortable chairs and tried to understand what had just happened. They had wanted to solve the human problem. Instead, they had just created a much bigger one. In the human section of the station, emergency messages were already being sent to Earth. The news would reach home in 6 hours. Jake knew what would happen next. President Turner would address the nation. The military would start moving ships. The colonies would get new orders. For 37 years, humans had played by alien rules. Now they were going to play by their own rules. The galaxy was about to learn the difference. Turner considered the question carefully. Nothing lasts forever, but we have built something based on principles that work: mutual respect, voluntary participation, shared benefits. As long as we remember those principles and keep working to uphold them, I think we have a good chance. Outside the observation deck, the galaxy continued its ancient rotation around the galactic center. But something fundamental had changed. For the first time in recorded history, the majority of spacefaring species were working together as equals rather than struggling for dominance over each other. It had taken a small act of defiance to start the change. One human putting down his diplomatic credentials and walking away from a system that did not work. But that small act had grown into a galactic transformation that benefited everyone. The Galactic Council had maintained order through fear and control. The Galactic Cooperative maintained peace through hope and